I've been single for far more cumulative years of my womanhood than I've been in a relationship. And externally, I've watched this relationship status evolve into a role. Amongst family and friends, and even in dating, it felt like my life became the perpetual single woman, starring Acamea Deadwiler. It's like people began to define me by my singleness. If I met a guy, the conversation revolved around, why are you single? With few inquiries into who I was aside from this label. If I met up with friends at a networking event, instead of discussing who I'd like to network with, the conversation immediately turned to, let's see who we can hook you up with. It was like, hey, my single friend's here. Not, hey, my critically acclaimed author and accomplished writer friend is here. If I came back from an out-of-town workshop and started to rave about all that I'd learned and experienced, others would interject with inquiries into whether I had a one-night stand. Most didn't care much to hear me talk about the museums I visited or the seminars that changed my perspective on a subject. Only if I met someone for a romantic rendezvous. Welcome to the life of a single woman, where your being single seems to supersede every other detail of your life in terms of external interest. This is what many women endure daily, even if they're not single. Swap the workshop with a promotion, buying a home, starting a business, or any other accomplishment. All most people want to hear about is the state of a woman's love life. When she'll get married, when she'll have children. I'm sure you'd agree that it can be difficult to feel valued and maintain an esteemed perception of self when this is the case. I hope you'd also agree that women are so much more than wives, mothers, and relationship statuses. It's time we deliberately view and approach them this way. According to the Asian Pacific Institute of Gender-Based Violence, globally, there were an estimated 15.4 million people in forced marriages in 2016. 88% of the victims were women and girls. Now, if you're thinking this is only an issue in other countries, note that between 2005 and 2015, at least 207,468 minors were forced into marriage right here in the United States. And 87% of them were girls, and 86% of those girls married adult males. I would say that these girls could have been doctors or lawyers, but they also could have chosen to be wives and mothers. The point is that they could have been whoever they elected to be, except wife was selected on their behalf. It was deemed a most important use of their female attributes. The conditioning starts early. Women are taught to aspire to marriage and children at a young age. We watch movies where Prince Charming swoops in and saves a woman from an awful existence. It's just assumed that we want the same. This scenario becomes the accepted fairy tale. What's the harm? The harm is that in creating this culture where the significance of a woman's relationship status is amplified, we create an environment where who a woman is romantically involved with overshadows who she is. It leads to a woman being, at best, encouraged, and at worst, forced into a union where her sense of value is variable and her desires don't just go unmet, but unconsidered. The first questions asked of a woman who meets someone for the first time are usually if she's married or has kids. Not what college she attended, what she does for a living, or what career goals and aspirations she holds. It's again this sentiment of, hey, you're a woman. What's the status of your womanly duties? It's not only men who take this approach either. Women generally apply the same outlook to other women. It's been ingrained into our psyche since the time we imagined ourselves as Cinderella or Snow White. What words do you associate with being a single woman? Lonely? Desperate? Bitter? Cold? Think about how you engage single women, even friends and family members. If you're a single woman, think about how friends and family most often engage you. What inquiries most commonly arise? I think if we're being honest with ourselves, some of us have likely just realized that we do, in fact, frequently bring up the topic of dating with the single ladies in our lives. With the involved ladies, we likely bring up marriage. And with those married but childless, we ask them if or when they'll have a baby. Now, mentally compare those conversations with the instances that you've asked about a woman's job, the book she's writing, or a goal that she has. If the scales balance, kudos to you. But I bet that for most of us, one side is decidedly heavier than the other. It all comes back to relationship status. We seem more concerned about who a woman is with than what she's done. Somehow, it becomes the topic of conversation at every family gathering, every outing with friends, and even in communication with strangers. I hear so many stories of women who dread holidays because they know they'll be bombarded with invasive probes into their love lives. They get tired of feeling as though they're letting mom down because they haven't given her any grandchildren. Being scrutinized every time they show up without a date grows exhausting. Then, we don't just pry. We make determinations about women based on their relationship status. Sometimes those assumptions are favorable, but other times they're damaging and diminishing. Whether she's married, with a partner, and especially if she's single, it shapes the way that we perceive her. Regardless of the sentiment, consider how narrow the analysis is when we decide anything about a woman based solely on this aspect of her life. I don't know a single woman in her 20s or older who hasn't felt pressured to marry. While I also know a couple of men who feel this pressure, I know more who are spoken of as bachelors, just having fun and not ready to settle down. Whereas with women, we're spinsters, or we're broken somehow if we adopt this stance. Consider this. A man is considered a mister, no matter his marital status. A woman can be a miss, a missus, or a ms, depending on the same criteria. Even her title is tied to her partner affiliation. Romantic partnership can be a source of joy and love. It's just not the only or inherently most significant source available. Many people equate marriage and family with happiness. So because they care about you and want you to be happy, they may emphasize this area of your life. I get it. Most people mean well. They don't intend to reduce you to a relationship status. They just believe it to be an important determinant in the quality of your life. The problem is, they don't believe that as a woman, you can be content without evolution in this area. This is what we've been taught, that the road to a woman's fulfillment runs through marriage, and more specifically, men. As women, we sway these beliefs by being unapologetic and demonstrating honest contentment no matter our relationship status. We avoid the impulse to answer for or offer disclaimers about the state of our love lives. It's okay to just be single, unwed, or without children. We don't need a reason. When others push for one, we should make this known. We work together to change this narrative by challenging ourselves to accept the idea of a woman's autonomous gratification. Fight the urge to know the status of a woman's love life. especially if you're not attempting to date her. Ask different questions. Initiate discussions about unrelated topics. The plan is for this deliberate deviation to become second nature over time. Eventually, we make our evolved and enlightened point of view the standard. We establish a new normal, one that considers a woman's relationship status inconsequential to who she is. Being subjected to a perpetual tethering of existence to relationship status can be detrimental to the self-esteem of a woman. It can cause her to attach her sense of worth to this external factor that does little to appreciate her as a whole and innately valuable human being. Old traditions die hard, so do gender norms. But together, we can ensure that the demise is imminent. So, how do we stop the conscious and unconscious behavior of defining women by relationship status? Becoming aware that we are doing this is the first step. We have to examine the way that we approach, speak of, and to women, and acknowledge the problematic history of practices such as connecting a woman's title to her marital standing. We can't make excuses for such obvious gender bias. Once we've embraced awareness and acceptance, we can begin to unlearn the diminishing perspectives that have been woven into the fabric of society. If we feel the urge to always ask a woman about her dating life or relationship status, we should ask ourselves, why? Why aren't we as interested in other aspects of her being? Asking ourselves why we care and talks such as the one we're having right now can help make us pay more attention to the philosophies that we hold in our minds about who a woman is supposed to be. Subsequently, we can become more aware of how those ideas manifest in our behavior. Then we can pass it on. From that awareness, we can address the situation and not only be more cognizant of our thoughts and actions, but help others be more mindful as well. When the holiday gathering with family rolls around and turns into an interrogation about the single woman's love life, interject. Ask about her work. If you're the woman being grilled, mention that you have many other things going on in your life that you are proud of and would love to talk about. Bringing your innate wholeness to light could prove effective in both group and one-on-one settings. Those who truly care for you and are assessing your relationship status from a place of love should embrace learning how they can better support your well-being. We can also choose to expose our little girls to more empowering media and stimuli. We can show them that they don't need to be saved and detach their idea of womanhood from their marital status. This way, the work we start today doesn't stop with us. Even if you don't believe that you define women by relationship status and see no issue with repeated related inquiries, deliberately not succumbing to the urge can have a profound impact on your viewpoint. If we force ourselves to ask different questions, to engage a woman in conversation